I see what you're saying. So I saw recently that you had a little exchange with Dave Rubin on Twitter. Now, I wanted to sort of get your thoughts overall because I know that you did an interview with Dave Rubin that I thought was great personally, and he essentially accused you of attempting to gain clicks. Can you just kind of run us through what went down?
Okay, so my understanding of it is that when I found out I would be in LA for Politicon a few months ago, I guess it was, or a couple months ago, I sent him an email and I said, hey, it would be great to do this sit down we've been talking about doing, and here are the dates I'm going to be there. And he said he was going to be in Europe with Jordan Peterson. And then I believe it was the Friday when I was in LA, he tweeted that he was having Tucker Carlson in. And I found that interesting because that was one of the days I offered to come in months earlier and he wasn't going to be available. And I guess I don't remember his response exactly, but it was something along the lines of, well, I am leaving tomorrow and I can't do 2 interviews today. But, you know, if you were a decent person, you would have sent a message to me privately instead of publishing it publicly, I guess was his argument.
And what would your response to that be? Because I know that you essentially said that, you know, you denied those claims, but I don't know. It was interesting to me because haven't you been attempting to sort of go like have a studio interview with him of some sorts for like a while now, like almost 2 years?
I have, but I have not. I mean, I was in LA a few months ago, but on vacation. I wasn't doing any work stuff. So, I mean, in his defense, the first time that I was in LA during the last year and a half on a work trip was a couple weeks ago.
Okay. So I wanted to, do you think that he's in any way trying to evade having you on, or do you think that it just happened the way it happened?
I genuinely don't know the answer to that.
And I know that you said that basically you were honestly not really sure what your status of a sort of whether you're friends with him or not after the interview. I mean, could you just sort of give me a breakdown of what happened after that interview?
Nothing. I mean, that's why I'm not sure. So I've known Dave Rubin for a while, and we would text and sometimes talk on the phone and that sort of thing. And I think it became less frequent as he had a political awakening, or whatever kind of term you want to apply to that. And then, I welcomed him on my show for an hour, and I did an interview that I thought was completely fair. But when things were said on policy that I didn't agree with, I pushed back. And we have barely been in touch since then. So, I mean, I guess the answer is I don't really know what's going on.
And do you think that you guys haven't been in touch because he felt in some way that, I don't know, he was, I don't know, I guess hurt that you sort of, because I thought it was a fair interview as well. I thought that you sort of asked him some pretty fair pointed questions. And did he not like find that to his liking of some sorts?
If that's the case, he did not communicate it to me.
Well, okay, that's something interesting. So you mentioned his political awakening. I know that you guys have been friends for a long time, and I've seen some of your guys' videos together, some of your guys' collaborations, specifically that of talking about Reza Aslan. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on his political awakening. You know, what happened with him, do you think?
So I can't really say specifically what makes someone decide to take certain political positions. There's a huge range of possibilities. One is you genuinely just realize that what your view was on issues previously is wrong, and you revisit, and that's perfectly reasonable. Like, for example, this week I did a segment on my show where I say that I have reevaluated my position on sex offender registries, and I'm now against them. And I sort of explain why, and that's totally reasonable. That's one possibility. Sometimes people take certain positions for financial reasons. In other words, they come to believe that there will be a financial benefit or a publicity benefit to taking one position that is different than the one you previously took. There can be a change in sort of like an underlying philosophy that then you realize, oh, given that my view on this has changed, I should really have a different perspective on these particular issues. I don't know what the answer is with Dave Rubin, again, because I've talked to him so little since this has taken place. What I can say is that as a general concept, I think he's around 40 years old now. I don't know of too many people whose politics have changed drastically when they are in their mid to late 30s. Like, I just don't know. I don't know of too many examples of that. I know of lots of examples of people whose politics have changed, like when they're in college, for example. That's a time. But short of just having very similar politics, but the parties changing around you or the alignments changing around you, it seems rare to me. Now, he might argue that, I think he has, that the left abandoned him, that like he's still on the left or something like that. But I don't know that that really makes too much sense. So I really can't say. I just know that I've never really met more than a few people who have had significant political realignments at that point in their lives.
Are you at all suspicious that he changed because of financial reasons, or do you get the hunch that it was strictly genuine, like 100% genuine?
I have no idea. And I know that there are videos online of people saying that there are funding sources of different kinds that are sort of conditional on the idea that certain people are invited or that type of thing. I don't know if they have strong evidence. I really wouldn't be able to say.
I also want to ask you about the interview that you guys did, because I thought that there were a lot. I mean, I just was wondering if you could sort of expand on certain things that I saw during that interview, because I felt like there were so many points where he was just totally inconsistent and he didn't really have a response. Like, I recall you essentially saying that, how can you claim to be a classical liberal, which is essentially all about free markets, and then simultaneously support single-payer healthcare? And then he goes on to describe Obamacare, and it just becomes like a complete clusterfuck, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think the interview kind of speaks for itself. I don't know that it's totally fair to him to like re-adjudicate the way the interview went right now. I think a lot of these policy questions would really be questions for him. But I think if you're pointing out that I was having disagreements with the consistency that I was perceiving in some of these ideas during the interview, I certainly was, and people could check that out.
Right. Yeah. I thought you did a great job in there. Sort of. I didn't think that you were in any way pushing any boundary. I just felt like you were asking fair questions, and I guess he didn't really like that very much. So here's something else that I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you about you actually had this sort of debate with Ben Shapiro on guns, and I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on that debate, and just I'm curious if you are going to do another debate with him in the future, and sort of why there hasn't been another one since then, because that was actually that was like 6 years ago, right?
I don't remember when it was, but it was so long ago that I don't remember how it went.
I see. So how did you guys get that set up? I'm just curious.
I think I just emailed him at the time, or my producer did.
And have you attempted to get in contact with him for another one before or after that?
We've been in contact since then, just short emails, and I don't know whether I've actually invited him back on the program since, and I don't know whether he'd be interested.
Okay, so here was something, you were at Politicon, and I'm curious about this because Ben Shapiro was there, and he didn't actually do any debates. And you didn't get to actually do any 1v1 debates with anyone. And you I saw you talk about on one of it was like an update video about Politicon, because you had to make a bunch of them, that there were these people who were sort of chickening out. I mean, are there any names that you can sort of divulge about who backed out?
Oh, Sam Cedar has since gone public with that, and Steven Crowder backed out of a debate with him.
Right, and was that the only person who did that outside of Candace Owens? And
yeah, so I mean, as far as I now have been told, Candace from what I'm told, Candace didn't back out. She had never accepted. And it was communicated to Kyle Kulinski and to me that we had a debate set with her and Charlie Kirk. The current story, as they tell it, is that they never had actually accepted, and thus it would be unfair to say they backed out, if that's accurate.
Okay, and